obviously, you and you looking at the same demonstration, it's possible you'll see things differently. That you will have seen, for example, an armed person, but he didn't see an armed person. Or you would have focused on an Israeli who fired warning shots, but he focused on an Israeli who was firing right at the head, you know? So on those grounds too, you'd expect differences, that there would be differences in the human rights reports. And what was most striking to me, I went through 15 years or 20 years of human rights reports, 15 years. And I only found one case of one demonstration on one afternoon in one city in the West Bank where two human rights organizations differed on what happened in that. And the difference was minor. Otherwise, there's complete agreement. This is not a controversial record about what happened and what's happening. And then, by the way, it's the same thing with the Gaza reports. They all reach the same conclusions on the key issues. Were the ambulances transporting militants or weapons? Were the hospitals being used as a refuge by Hamas militants? Was Hamas using Palestinians as human shields? On all of these issues, they all reach the same conclusions.
Mm-hmm. Okay. You travel all the time around the world to do this work, especially in the EU and US.
I wouldn't say around the world. I haven't gone to Asia.
Okay.
And I've not gone to Australia.
Right. Is there a particular reason for that?
I cannot bear the thought of that trip. Australia is like 24 hours. I can't.
Right.
I've been asked several times.
Okay.
I keep making excuses because I can't psychologically handle it.
Now, having been nearly around the world, how would you evaluate the goal setting and the methods of working of the political organizations that work towards a just peace? I mean, how would you think the political movements work as an entity? Would you like to see some changes?
Grassroots organizations are terrific. I mean, generally they're very committed and very organized. The only thing that's lacking is a larger scale coordination so that different people's work can fit into a larger picture and make us more effective. I assume it will come at some point, but right now you tend to have a very good organization here and a very good organization there, but they haven't yet figured out how to combine their efforts to have a bigger impact. But some of the groups are fantastic. In England, FOSIS, the Federation of Student Islamic Societies, they're just terrific. They once had me in a speaking tour. I was so exhausted by the end. I said, you guys, I am never, ever, ever again going on a FOSIS speaking tour. And they were very upset. They said, why? I said, because you guys are too efficient. You know, I couldn't breathe. And I just went on a speaking tour in Canada for CJPME, Canadians for Justice and Peace in the Middle East. And again, fantastically well organized. There are a lot of quite impressive shows.
What would you think that could be gained if the grassroots organizations could be coordinated more coherently?
Those simple things like just to give you an example, I'm now going from, where did I start? Yeah, I started out in Copenhagen, then Helsinki, then Montreal. And I'm going home for 3 days, and I'm going for 2.5 days, and I'm going back to Amsterdam. It doesn't make sense. I mean, everything should be done together.
Right.
You know, simple things like that, when you have coordination, it just makes things much more effective. And it also saves money and, you know, like right now, I was glad with the 3 groups. I did Copenhagen, Helsinki, and Montreal. And I said, you know, you figure out a plan, and that way you'll all save money with the airfare. Each of you will only have to pay 1.5 ways rather than 2. So those things, we have to husband our resources.
It's not very well known that rather than the US, it's the European Union that's the most important trading partner with Israel. How do you think the European Union has managed to keep such a low profile when executing its major role in supporting, or at least passively accepting, the acts of Israel?
Because the European position is, I don't want to call it ambiguous. It's not a uniform position. And the UN General Assembly votes. The Europeans are always fine. They vote with the international community. They were weak on the Goldstone report because political pressure was brought to bear on them. The problem is that when you try to get them to act on what they claim to believe, that's when problems begin. So the Europeans can simultaneously vote for all of the good resolutions at the UN and simultaneously have these trade relations which violate all of the EU statutes on having trade relations with countries which have bad human rights records. In the case of the United States, they're consistent. Their record is uniform. Namely, they have an awful record in the General Assembly, and they have an awful record in terms of trade. So the U.S. looks like a more obvious target than Europe. No, the fact of the matter is, where things count, the European record is terrible. But in symbolic and in formal terms, the record is okay. And that's not a trivial fact, by the way, because a lot of politics is forcing people to confront their hypocrisy. The Europeans are saying one thing and doing the other. So you have half the battle won because they're saying the right thing. They're doing the wrong thing, but then you have to shame them. You have to get them to act on what they already know is right. In the case of the United States, the battle is twice as difficult because it's not only they do the wrong thing, they say the wrong thing. So you have to even convince them that what they say is wrong, and that's a harder battle.
Exactly. Now, would you think that things like suspending the EU-Israel Association Agreement would be a powerful tactic, strategy in compelling Israel to obey the international law?
Yeah, there's no question that you can get the Europeans to, I wouldn't call it boycott. I don't like to put terms which make it look as if Israel is being singled out for punishment. I would just say to get the Europeans to act in accordance with their law, with their rules. Now, if they want to act in accordance with their laws with other countries, sure, I support that also. But all we're asking is that you obey the law. What you yourself say is the law. So we're not sort of just singling out Israel for a boycott, no. What we're doing is we're saying to the Europeans, you have laws in the books about having trade relations with countries which are consistent human rights violators. And you have laws in the books about transferring weapons to countries which are consistent human rights violators. Finland has major military relations with Israel, which violate the law. And so all we're talking about is enforcing the law. That's not singling out Israel. If you want to, I'm happy if you enforce the law with everybody. That's not a problem for me.